Peter Jackson is a director who is probably most well known for directing the Lord of the Rings live-action trilogy in the early 2000s. But, before that, his claims to fame were his low-budget splatter and black comedy films, starting with the 1987 sci-fi horror comedy film Bad Taste, centering around man-eating aliens. His next film was the 1989 black comedy satire of the Muppets called Meet the Feebles. The Muppets are scary enough in my opinion, but you know, it only made $80,000 at the box office despite having a budget of $750,000. I guess people just weren't ready for the Muppets to do Family Guy yet.
Meet the Feebles is about to be released.
His latest feature film, Braindead. And if you know anything about his movies, you may prefer to delay lunch for about 20 minutes.
Jackson's next film, however, became a cult classic, even though it was also a box office bomb. That film being the subject of this video, Braindead. As the title of the video suggests, it was marketed under the title Dead Alive in North America. I assume to prevent any confusion between an American film also titled Braindead that had come out a couple of years earlier. I've actually seen Jackson's Braindead a few times before. I found out about it when I was younger and was immediately intrigued simply because of the lawnmower scene. From what I remember, it certainly didn't disappoint. But given that several years have passed, will I still hold the same opinion? Let's find out. Without further ado, on with the review.
Polos is life, 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 sleep all night and then Polos is life.
The film opens in a place called Skull Island in 1957, with a zoologist named Stuart McAlden attempting to smuggle a creature called a rat monkey off of the island. He doesn't exactly seem like the nicest guy considering how he treats someone that I assume is meant to be his guide.
It's only a bloody monkey, for Christ's sake. Now, pick it up.
The pair are stopped by the residents of the island, who warn McAlden that he must set the animal free and leave immediately, lest they be cursed, and be violently killed by them as a preventative measure. McAlden doesn't take them seriously and just fires his gun at them, leading to a chase scene. This is kind of a cliche, with the arrogant scientist guy ignoring those who he thinks are stupider than him, but turn out to be right. The name Skull Island is rather predictable too, but it does serve as an interesting origin story. McAlden and his team escape, although he almost leaves his teammate behind. Again, not very endearing. When they drive over a rock, the rat monkey's cage falls onto McAlden, and the monkey bites and scratches him. The others immediately stop the buggy and kill McAlden, and given the genre of this movie, you can conclude that it's to avoid the spread of infection. While I can't show you the extent of the gore, the effects are done rather well considering when it was made and the budget constraints, although the hand is clearly fake. The remaining trio reluctantly take the rat monkey to whoever is shipping it to its destination, Wellington Zoo. With some nice use of pathetic fallacy, the plane's journey begins on a rather stormy night, although it lands while welcomed by a more calm and pretty-looking sunny morning. I really like the look of the 1950s setting over the opening credits. The town looks quite tranquil. That won't last long, I'm sure. We are introduced to our deuteragonist, Paquita, a girl who works in her family's shop. She seems to take an interest in one of the delivery boys named Roger, but if you ask me, I think his lines are rather cheesy.
It's a pretty dress, Paquita. See you later, alligator.
It's clearly working for him, so you do you, mate. The actual protagonist of the film, a nervous and timid man named Lionel, comes into the shop and makes an order. He accidentally spills some things and makes a fool of himself before trying to leave the shop after apologizing, despite he and Paquita immediately having a connection with each other. This is quite the way to introduce your main character. I find it to be an unusual but refreshing choice to not have him on screen after the opening kill, and his journey from being a bumbling but well-meaning sort of person to the final act's hero will be a cathartic watch as the film goes on. When Lionel returns home, which turns out to be a large and extravagant Victorian mansion, we are introduced to his domineering mother, Vera. While she does seem to order him around a bit, she is in good spirits once she discovers that she has been voted the treasurer-elect of the Wellington Ladies Welfare League, and that the president, Nora, will be paying them a congratulatory visit. However, she immediately becomes agitated and demands that Lionel clean an apparent mess. Although he initially protests that he had already done some cleaning, he caves. The relationship Lionel has with his mother is implied to be the source of his nervous disposition, and this is expanded on later. It does make you feel for the guy. I also don't see the point in having such a large house if you don't have a large family, and not hiring more people to help out if you want it cleaned that regularly doesn't make sense either. They clearly have the money to do so. Lionel is affectionately attacked by Paquita's dog when she comes to fulfill that delivery, and after some small talk, she tricks Lionel into asking to take her on a date to the zoo the following day. See how the storylines are connecting? Lionel happily accepts the offer, but Vera is shown to be watching the pair from a window. She breaks her favourite vase in order to get him to come inside, and makes a ridiculous comment in order to make Lionel feel bad.
Would never have happened if you'd taken more care with the dusting. I can get you another one.
We learn that Lionel's father is dead, as Vera cries about the vase being her last anniversary gift from him. Being overbearing in terms of being overprotective, while misguided and maladaptive, is a bit more understandable, but Vera just seems to be manipulative and doesn't seem to care about Lionel's well-being. You could even go as far as assuming that the reason she orders him around the house is just to keep him inside, and to stop him from flying the nest. Nevertheless, Lionel is brave and sneaks out for the date with Paquita. He becomes disturbed while looking at the water, and explains to Paquita that his father drowned after saving him when he fell off a pier. Paquita offers him a sympathetic hand, and they go to the monkey cage instead, where they kiss. Not the most romantic setting, but it's nice to see them develop a relationship, especially as Lionel comes across as lonely and isolated. The couple spot the aggressive and violent rat monkey, conveyed through some charming stop-motion animation. It rips off the arm of one of the smaller monkeys who gets stuck in the fence separating the animals, horrifying Lionel and Paquita. I don't understand why you would even want such a creature in a zoo, especially in such close proximity to other animals. After this, and an account of a grotesque backstory for the creatures from one of the zookeepers, Paquita wants to sit down and I can't blame her. Vera spies on them from afar, but she slips on a banana peel funnily enough, falling against the cage and prompting the rat monkey to chomp on her. She manages to break free and stomps on it, killing it in a pretty drawn out and gruesome scene. Paquita offers her help, but she pushes her away, insisting that Lionel take her home instead. In a way, this probably played out how Vera wanted in the short term, clearly taking advantage of the situation. After tending to his mother, Lionel finds Paquita has come to his house to return his jacket, as he left it at the zoo, and he helps her sneak onto the balcony. She offers to take him to see a film, but he unwillingly rejects her. However, when she gives him a rose, he stops her from leaving and they kiss again. This exchange is rather teenagery in the way that they sneak around, and I think it highlights how Lionel really isn't allowed to act like someone his age should. That night, Vera grows uneasy in her bed and her wound bursts. The zoom-in makes the beginning of her transformation very apparent. In the morning, Lionel finds her worse than ever, the wound now open and pulsating disgustingly. She refuses to let Lionel get a nurse called McTavish, and Nora arrives, so she insists on attending lunch. Vera literally begins to fall apart, with Lionel having to glue her face back on before lunch. In some typical Jackson-style gross-out scenes, Vera ends up eating her own disembodied ear, as well as Paquita's dog when she comes to warn Lionel about a foreboding danger. Yuck! And poor dog!
I will remember you.
After a scuffle resulting in them falling down the stairs, the couple finally get Nurse McTavish, but Vera dies while she is calling an ambulance, leaving Lionel distraught. Vera reanimates and attacks McTavish as she tries to comfort Lionel, shoving her hands through her face and tearing her head almost off nearly headless Nick style. Well, here we are with the zombies already, and it only escalates from here. As Lionel struggles to put up a fight, McTavish also reanimates, but he manages to push both of them into the cellar as Paquita comes downstairs, with no idea of what has just transpired. Lionel lies and tells her Vera and McTavish have gone to hospital, and turns up the radio to drown out the noise. He is unable to drown out the zombie noises that night though, and goes to the vet to get some tranquilizers.
My family left Latvia during the occupation. We were hunted like dogs.
Interesting guy, shame we don't see more of him. Lionel arms himself up and tranquilizes the zombies in the cellar, although again he has to fight them off. That night, he has nightmares of drowning, this time it being a woman, and he goes to Paquita's shop to search for answers about the previous warning. Paquita's grandmother says that Lionel is surrounded by death, while Vera breaks out of the house in some rather dramatic and humorous shots. Granny gives Lionel a lucky talisman and Vera is launched by a tram into the shop, but Lionel is able to tranquilize her once more. No hiding it now, Lionel, is there? As Vera is now presumed dead, there is a funeral procession and we are then introduced to this weirdo, Uncle Leslie, who has a thing for Paquita. Vera's embalming goes horribly, with leakage, let's say. As this film's priest, Father Magruder, love this guy, is giving the liturgy, Lionel interrupts.
Resurrected.
That night, Lionel tries to exhume his mother to administer more tranquilizer, but a group of teenagers beat him up, assuming that he has other, more evil intentions. They also rob him and desecrate the grave, but pay for this when Vera rises again. This ends about as well as one would think. Father Magruder arrives on the scene and tries to intervene.
Stay back, boy. This calls for divine intervention.
Martial arts wielding priests, everyone. As I said, love this guy.
I kick ass for the Lord.
He ends up being bitten though and is impaled on a gravestone.
I will remember you.
I did quite like the moody cemetery setting for this scene. It is fitting for a zombie film. Lionel attempts to civilize the zombies, holding a bizarre, monstrous lunch. At some points, they are just kind of silly and childish though. Sleazy Uncle Leslie overhears that Lionel will inherit Vera's fortune, and pays Lionel a visit, but when he hears the zombies doing things that they shouldn't, he assumes the worst.
So you found your dad's old stag movies, hey?
What the fuck is he talking about?
Believe it or not, this impregnates zombie McTavish, creating a baby zombie, Selwyn. It's kind of cute in my opinion, like how the baby Grinch is cute, although it's obviously a doll in some shots. Yeah, this doesn't look good. Lionel rejects Paquita once more, this time trying to protect her from the zombies, but Roger sees them and assumes that Lionel is harassing her, so he knocks him down. Uncle Leslie has let himself in while Lionel was out, and assumes that the zombies are simply dead bodies.
And I thought you were such a quiet chappie.
It is usually the quiet ones, apparently. Uncle Leslie blackmails Lionel into giving up the house, and holds a house party. After being harassed by Leslie, Paquita goes to hide in the cellar, and Lionel has to save her from the zombies. She encourages him to get rid of them, so he gives them a shot of poison and buries them, but there's still half an hour left of the film to go. Lionel fights Leslie and is thrown into the cellar, where he realizes that the poison was actually animal stimulant. All of the zombies break free, attacking the partygoers in appalling zombie movie fashion. Paquita, Leslie, and Lionel are separated in the chaos, and we get a classic zombie movie handwall scene. The movie then spirals into cartoon territory. I really can't show too much of this movie due to YouTube's guidelines, but Uncle Leslie does get his just desserts in one way or another. Leslie soon regrets behaving so barbarically earlier, because he does end up being killed by his own sister, Vera, who has become a ghastly super zombie while chasing after the baby zombie. When it looks like all hope is lost, Lionel faces the horde with his trusty lawnmower, turning the zombies to mush. Now having to face the final boss, the roided Vera zombie, he admits that he actually caught Vera drowning his father and his mistress in the bathtub as a child.
What a twist!
Vera tries to knock Paquita off the roof and reverse birth Lionel, but he breaks free by cutting his way out with the talisman, emerging from a bloody cocoon-like mess. Vera falls into the now burning house, and Paquita and Lionel escape. The film ends with the fire brigade arriving and the couple now being free to be together. Well, that was certainly a memorable film. While it does fall into a few cliches here and there, it is definitely imaginative and amusing overall, especially for a subgenre of zombie movie that was finding its feet, the zomcom. The story itself is a pretty simple and classic tale of a man overcoming an obstacle so that he can be with the object of his affections. I do like how both of the obstacles, the zombie outbreak and his overbearing mother, are intrinsically linked, seeing as one began because of the other, and in the same vein, one ends because the other does. Lionel can't be the hero and stop the zombies if he can't overcome the fear he has of his mother. It's an interesting connection that you just wouldn't expect from a film like this, and I haven't seen one quite like this since. Something I appreciated is that while meek and prone to giving into coercion and manipulation, even though he probably knows what's going on, Lionel is never characterized as pathetic or someone that the audience is meant to look down on. I was rooting for him the whole time. You just kind of want him to stand up for himself, making the ending where he finally steps into that hero role very rewarding. I like how casual he is about his mum turning into a zombie in the first place as well. It just seems like an inconvenience to him at first. You could argue that Paquita becomes more of a damsel in distress towards the end of the film, but I think that she's largely a very headstrong and capable character, not accepting mistreatment and trying her best to help fight off the zombies when the party goes south. Other characters like Vera and pervy Uncle Leslie give noteworthy performances. Pretty much everyone in this film does a good job of chewing scenery. The acting is quite hammy, as you can imagine from a splatstick movie such as this, with scenes like kicking ass for the Lord being way over the top, and this energy is carried throughout the film. A lot of the visuals are very, very disgusting, so I wouldn't recommend this to anyone without a strong stomach. Splatstick is the word I would use to describe this, with the gags often being very macabre in nature. The effects are really something special if you're interested in that kind of thing. I found some behind the scenes clips on YouTube that I've linked in my description. With the sheer amount of gore and blood in this film, I can only imagine how much work was put into perfecting each scene. It really emphasizes how much effort and time gets put into making a film, especially one with such a demanding premise and smaller budget. For example, Baby Selwyn was portrayed and voiced by 2 different people in parts, as well as being made from several foam latex pieces, solid pieces, as well as mechanical parts.
The thing about foam is, although it is very, very flexible, it still doesn't, it is still unable to pull the same range of features that a human actor's face can pull. It'll move and twist a little, but to get a full ray of emotions for the baby to express, we needed to sculpture the 3 different heads. A crying head, a standard head, which is that one there.
But did it all pay off? At the time of its release, film critic David Stratton wrote that performances hit just the right notes, production values are excellent, and the film is technically fine, in a review for Variety magazine. The film has an audience score of 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is more than deserved in my eyes. At the time of Braindead's release, the New Zealand Film Commission's funding had been cut by 74%, and things were looking bleak for the budding New Zealand film scene.
Everyone should care because these films do such a lot to show New Zealand to overseas audiences. I mean, how else does anybody in America, middle of America or England or some place in Europe, get to actually watch New Zealand for an hour and a half?
I find this to be really disheartening, as a lot of the films that I like just so happen to be made in New Zealand, and it is a very nice landscape. Jackson himself, along with the actors on set, seem to have had faith in the film despite the dwindling backing of the film industry from the NZFC.
You know, I mean, culture isn't something, it isn't just opera and ballet. It's the way we eat, the way we live, all that sort of things. Zombies, all that sort of stuff, yes.
All the work on Braindead did seem to pay off though, as the film won numerous awards. While I would say that this film isn't for everyone and has a cult fan base for a reason, I would recommend it to fans of horror and horror comedy alike. Well, that's all for this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.
The blue and green ones are my favourite kind, but I'll eat the coloured ones from time to time, 'cause Polos is life, 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 Polos is life. Sleep all night and then Polos is life.